Solar, and it doesn't, the old saying is, if you don't like the weather, just wait a few moments and it'll change. It's real true about Mississippi, Arkansas, Tennessee. I think the whole South. But it goes to show that God is still in charge. He's still the one that controls the weather. He's still the one that controls what happens. And you know what? We can just sit back and let Him lead the way and follow Him through everything that's going on. This last 2 weeks, I've noticed a new trend in public school education. Have y'all been hearing all about it? How many schools are now going to a modified calendar? In other words, going to year-round school. July is going to be the month you're going to get out. And you're going to get out every 9 weeks. You're going to get 2 weeks out. Some, like Thanksgiving and Christmas, probably going to be longer there. But, most of your bigger schools are already going to it this year. So, I look within the next 2 or 3 years, everybody will be doing it. But, what is that going to do? We sit here and we worry about what's going on around us and what everybody's going to do and how this is going to do that, and how that's going to affect this and stuff like that. You want to know something? When it all comes down to it, when you look at it, it means absolutely nothing. We get all concerned with what is going on around us, and we are not concerned about one thing that's very important. And that is the spiritual warfare that's being fought around us. Now, people will look at me and they would say, well, he's crazy. He's talking about spiritual warfare going on. Yes, there are angels. There are demons. There is Satan. There is Christ. And there's a battle going on all around us. And we need to be acutely aware of it. We don't need to give lip service to it. We need to understand that there is a battle going on for us. There is a battle going on for our children. There is a battle going on for our neighbors and everybody we pass. There is warfare going on, and we live through it. If you will, open your Bibles up to Revelation chapter 2, verses 8 through 11. This is about the suffering of Smyrna that we're going to be talking about today. The persecuted church. To the angel of the church in Smyrna, write, these things says the first and the last, who was dead and came to life. I know your works, tribulation, and poverty, but you are rich. And I know the blasphemy of those who say they are Jews and are not, for a synagogue of Satan. Do not fear any of those things which you are about to suffer. When you look at that sentence there, it's an important sentence. Do not fear of those things you are about to suffer. They were faithful to Jesus. They were faithful to God. And Jesus said, you're about to suffer. Folks, why do we think we're not going to suffer? Amen. Here he's talking right there. Indeed, the devil, see, Jesus says the devil is about to throw some of you into prison that you may be tested, and you will have tribulation 10 days. Be faithful unto death. You have tribulations 10 days, and then be faithful unto death. Sound like they're going to be up dying, right? And I will give you the crown of life. Who has an ear, let him hear what the Spirit says to the churches. He who overcomes shall not be hurt by the second death. There's something key in here that we need to understand. We will suffer spiritual warfare. It is real. It is all around us. And we are in it. Now, we can either go in it naked, or we can go in it armored up and ready to fight. That's the two choices we have. We're either in the battle or we're already defeated in the battle. Satan wants us to follow him. Look at the world out there. The world says, y'all need to shut up. Y'all need to be quiet and go along with what we're doing. Don't rock the boat. Don't cause no problems. Don't get nobody mad at you. Sort of just slide through life. What good are you? What good are you if you are not out there in the battle? We're called to be the irritant. We're called to be different than from the rest of the world. And the reason why we're called to be different, why we're called to irritate, is to spread the word. To show people the lies that the world has to say by the revelation of the truth. That's what we're here for. That's what we are supposed to do. But you know what? Satan wants us to fail. Man, come on, let's look at it. They got a show on out there where Lucifer is a hero. Literally. People are watching it. They had a show that people were watching called Jeffrey Dahmer. And people, thousands of people, millions of people were watching. And some of them came to church. There were even preachers watching that stuff. They come to church. They didn't think nothing about it. But they don't go out and fight the battle. Because the world has got into their minds. They think that the church should be here and people will flock to the church. That day is over with. We are to go out and we are to tell people, we're to spread the word. We must be prepared. How many of you are prepper? Think about it now. How many of you have prepared where for life to go out and you got stuff set up to where you can take care of yourself for a few days? How many of you prepared for some type of disaster where you may have to take care of yourself 6 weeks or more? How many of you are preparing for when the economy collapses, you're going to have enough food at least for a year so you can get under your feet again? You got seed saved up. Things of that nature. We're preparing for stuff that happens on this world, but are we preparing the world for the return of Christ? Are we telling the world, hey, this is coming? Are we studying His Word? And I know I talk about this all the time, but that's one of the most important things that we are to do. God has given us His Word and we need to read it. We need to know it. We need to understand it. We need to be prepared. But how many of us lets TV or something else get in the way? We can't find the time to read the Bible. We can find the time to watch our show. Are we preparing ourselves to go out and prepare the world? This is coming, folks. This is real. Satan's real. He wants you blind and dumb, fat and happy. He don't want you to be suffering so that you'll be looking for something better. We need to be warning the people and telling the people. We need to be praying. We need to have a prayer life. You see, the prayer life prepares us. But what it also does, having a prayer life, we begin to realize that Christ is real. That God is real. That we need Him. I'm going to ask you this question. You may have a boatload of money in the bank. What happens when the grocery stores don't have food on the shelf? All that money you got in the bank? Worthless. Boy, grocery stores ain't gonna never have no food on the shelf. Take a little hike to the grocery store today. Some of you are older than me, and I guarantee y'all can't remember a time when the grocery shelves weren't full. When I worked at Super Value as a teenager, those shelves were stocked 5 to 6 cans deep, 3 to 4 cans high. Nowadays, you're lucky they got 4 cans in there. But all that money you worked so hard to prepare yourself for, so you can take care of yourself, is going to be worthless. You see, we're depending on the wrong thing. Man. Prayer helps us keep our focus on the real thing, the only thing that will take care of us, the only thing that will sustain us, and that's Jesus. We need to look at Smyrna and say, you know what, this seems like what it is today. Satan is slick. He's not going to come slap you upside the head. He's going to come sneaking in. You know, a snake don't come up and knock on your door and say, can I come in? A snake sneaks in. So we need to understand that we need to be praying. We need to be living by faith. We need to be preparing for what is coming by building our faith and trusting God. How many of y'all got a freezer? If you have a freezer, raise your hand. How many of you got food in that freezer, stocked to the top? What happens when the electricity goes off and it don't come back on? Yep, all that food in there. How many of you know how to can? You know what? Canning does require a freezer. But now, Ann, I'm going to ask you a question. Can you can over a fire? Do you have the stuff to can over a fire? So that's what I'm talking about.
You can try it. You sure can.
Yep. So, you know, we're depending on think about it now. We're completely dependent on man. We put our faith in man, not God. We put our faith in the God of technology instead of God of faith. You know, the preppers have the ideal right, but they're leaving one thing out. God. We need to be preparing for God. We ought to have faith at all times. It's what gets us through. We're not perfect. There's not a single person in here that doesn't have something wrong in their life. If we didn't have something wrong, we would be perfect. But what makes us different from everybody else out there is our faith. You know, I read the Bible. Every single one of the human beings that God has in His Bible has some imperfection. But they have one thing in common. Their undeniable faith in God. In their walk. Paul understood he had a problem, and he asked God to remove that problem from him, and God said no. Because that's what keeps you on track with me. Because I fully believe that Paul's problem was his pride. And God said, no, I'm going to keep that there because if I remove that problem, you would become even more prideful. You would think you were the best instead of the worst. That's what Paul always described himself. I'm the worst of sinners. I think we all could say that. We need to keep our faith where our faith needs to be because it sustains us when all else fails. When the lights went off a while ago, I go out there and push that button, but it didn't stay on. But you know what? I didn't die because of it. God just kept me through. He said, hey, turn the switch off on the air conditioner and the lights will be on. You know, we need to make, well, Carl said it, but he told her to say it. But anyway, you know, people will tell us not to believe the Bible. People will tell us there's no such thing as God. People will tell us we need to modernize that Bible. Make it more up to date. Many come to church for show. That's not as real today as it used to be. You know, it used to be everybody in the community, even the atheists came to church. Every church had its own atheists in it. Because everybody went to church. Nowadays, that's not the case. Other people come to church to start trouble. They just enjoy conflict. They enjoy stirring the pot. I know several churches like that. Always got something going on. But if we keep our faith, we will sail through it. We'll trust God to take care of it. You know, and here, what does Jesus say? Do not fear the suffering you're about to go through. We're not to be afraid of suffering. That we should grow stronger. We should grow more faithful in our suffering. Because it's in our suffering is where we see God. It's in our suffering where we feel God. It's in our suffering where we receive strength from God. When you're bowed down and you can't get up and all of a sudden you have the strength to stand up. It's in our suffering where we realize that the only hope that we have is God. So we don't need to fear suffering. When it comes, we need to embrace it. We need to walk through it. We need to trust God as we've never trusted God before. Like I said, like I told you before, that missionary that was in New York, and he's walking down the street, and the guy comes up to him and says, give me your money or I'm going to kill you. And he just looked at him and said, what, you threaten me with heaven? Don't fear suffering. Trust God. Realize the world doesn't love you. If you're doing what God has called you to do, if you're walking the way God calls you to walk, if you're living the way God calls you to living, if you're spreading the word as God calling you to spread the world doesn't like you. I have a question to ask you. Most of you are old enough to remember this. On Sunday mornings, when you turned the TV on, what was the main thing you saw on all the channels? What? Preaching. What do you see today? The media doesn't like the church anymore. The news doesn't like the church anymore. Schools doesn't like the church or the Bible anymore. Don't bring it in here, don't use it, don't talk about it. The world is getting the message that the church and God's Word is evil. It will ruin your mind. Those words have been said. Don't bring God's truth into the school because it will ruin a child's mind. Yeah, it will ruin their mind for your foolishness and your idiocy and your false lies. Teach them at home. Bring them to church. Remain faithful. Keep believing, keep telling, and keep living for Jesus. If you can't teach your children anything else, teach them those three things. Those three things will get them through life. Those three things will get them in heaven. But you can't teach them by words only. You have to teach them by example. If it's important to you, it's going to be important to them. If it's important that you trust God in everything, your children are going to see it and they're going to say, that's how I'm supposed to live my life. That's what we are to do. That's how we overcome the world that doesn't love us. By walking the walk and living the talk that we're out there preaching. If we're doing that, God will strengthen us. He will give us the strength to get through whatever suffering, whatever persecution is coming our way. He will watch over us. And He'll take care of us. We're living in a world today that many of us thought they never would see. I'm going to be honest. Like I said, I'm not a spring chicken, but I'm not an old rooster either yet. I'm about to get there, but I'm not. But I never thought in my life I would live to see a time where Christians were attacked in this country. You watch it on TV. Pastors don't go to the White House anymore because the White House don't want them. Never thought I would live in a time when being a Christian was made fun of. Wasn't important. I can remember when the doors of the school buildings were open for the Gideons to come in. I can remember getting my first little 6-inch Bible. You know what? There's a generation that don't remember that. Because in most schools today, the doors are closed. Folks, I'm telling you right now, in the time of suffering and persecution, continue believing. Continue to have faith. Study your word. Have a prayer life. And keep doing what God has commanded you to do. And that's my prayer for you this week. What are we singing?